Deidre Holm. I'm living in Paradise right now. I'm originally from Winterland, which is a small community on the Burin Peninsula. I'm married to Andrew Holm. We have 2 kids. We have a daughter, she's 8, her name is Ray, and our son is Pearson, and he's 5. And we also have a 9.5-year-old Australian Shepherd, and his name is Batman. I'm a stay-at-home mom for the most part. I always have been because we had our kids in Bay Roberts, and I stay at home with them. So early on in 2021, our world kind of shifted a little bit. My grandmother got quite sick, and so they ended up moving out of their home, like where we grew up in Winterland, and moved into town. My uncle also was got fairly sick very quickly, was diagnosed with cancer and was going to begin treatments and stuff. He ended up passing away just a few weeks later. When I went home for his funeral, I was feeling pretty sick. My doctor at the time had related it to stress-related IBS. For a couple years, I was dealing with some mild bowel issues. But once I got back home, it didn't really get any better. And so coming into June and stuff, and because I thought, well, if I can manage my stress levels, then maybe I can manage the bowel issue. So I saw my doctor and I got put on an anti-anxiety medication. And you start to wonder, am I making this up? Am I actually sick, or is it just anxiety that's creating this, that I'm creating this in myself? I was throwing up at this point as well. I was very, very sick. Couldn't eat anything, couldn't keep anything down, couldn't drink anything. And so they monitored me for a bit, trying to figure out why pain meds wouldn't work, why anti-nausea meds wouldn't work, anything like that. I was lying on the floor there in the main area of the house, and I told them, I said, I can't do anything. I can't get up. If I stand up, I'm going to have to go to the bathroom, and I was essentially just bleeding. And so we got in there, and the doctor that was there, she just kind of refused to she was like, okay, there's something going on, obviously. We need to figure this out. We're gonna send you for a CT scan. They ended up figuring out that I had an inflammatory bowel disease. So yeah, about a week into the stay at the hospital, when they were giving me the treatments and stuff, it was overnight Saturday night, and I was feeling like I just suddenly had an onset of pain. Of more pain, I should say. And I couldn't even really get up to go to the bathroom to pee anymore at this point. I remember laying in the bed there, and she put on the blood pressure cuff and the heart monitor thing and everything else. And my heart rate had been elevated already anyway, a little bit. But when she did my heart rate that morning, it was 155. Just laying back in the bed, 155 beats per minute. They determined that my bowel had perforated at some point, and so it was just infection and mess inside my abdominal cavity. I had gone septic, basically. And so it was explained to me that basically the same blood that was supposed to keep me alive, that your body uses to keep you alive, was also killing me because it was full of this infection. And so a surgeon came into my room, and he said, so your bowel is perforated. We're gonna need to take you into the OR to remove your entire colon and give you what's called a total colectomy. And he said, and you're gonna have a bag on your side. And I remember just laying there, and I've been in the OR before for other things, and nothing major, of course. And I just remember being there, and I was like, I don't feel nervous right now. And I was just having these thoughts in my head, and I was like, I know there's something going on. I know I should be worried. I know that there's things that are happening that are quite stressful right now. I remember looking at the nurse who was next to me here, and she said to me, I said, can I ask you a question? And she goes, yeah, of course. And everyone's running around doing things. And I said, I feel really calm right now. I said, is that okay? She was like, that's actually really good that you're calm right now. The whole situation I can wrap up would be that I had that peace that you just cannot ever explain. That it was that peace that God gives when you can't do it yourself, kind of thing. The surgeon told me when I opened you up, he said your colon was like a wet paper bag with holes in it. And he said when I picked it up, it fell apart in my hands. I went into the ICU. I was on a ventilator, life support for 2 days. It had to be open and drained, basically, because there was so much infection. They washed me out as much as they could, but they couldn't get it all. I had to get my vac dressing changed every 3 days. It was excruciatingly painful. And you get to the point where you're just like, okay, how much longer can I actually do this? Not long after getting up to the floor where I spent most of my 2 months in the hospital, they came in and they created a binder for me for my stomach to like hold everything together to help me to get up so I could start to move, because I lost all my muscle very quickly. But by the time the 2 months was over, I mean, I had lost 60 pounds in total. I had to sit in a chair for a little bit, and that was like a goal for the day, was to sit in the chair instead of being in the bed, sort of thing. And there were so many little things that just felt like one hit after another when I was in my recovery. I was in an extreme amount of pain, getting looks from people, like medical people, who were like, well, what are we gonna do here? Like, what's the next step here? And knowing that they didn't have the answer, and I certainly didn't have the answer, I was like, what do I do? There's nothing I can do about this. I felt so out of control of everything. And on top of that, all of that, my husband is home by himself with our 2 small kids, who at the time were 7 and 4. The span of the summer from July 26th until August 23rd, I saw my kids 3 times in person. I was very tired at the initial coming home and having to get my vac dressing changed still twice a week by someone coming in to the house and changing it and stuff for me. You think everything's starting to get back to normal. I was starting to gain my strength back a little bit, starting to feel more like myself. And then my hair, I was noticing my hair was falling out like crazy. And I was like, what is going on? Why is my hair falling out? I was like, maybe it's just like, bit falling out and it's gonna stop. It just kept going and going and going. I was like, does anybody know that your hair can fall out just from trauma, from surgery? I had no idea that could happen. I was always a very self-conscious person growing up, like super self-conscious, worried about, like, oddly enough, every hair being in the right place kind of thing. And that's when I posted it on Facebook, because I said, I'm just gonna tell everybody, because people are gonna start wondering, like, where's Deidre kind of thing. And I said, I just kind of got to tell people, because I was just like, it was so much easier for me to just let it out and tell people about it rather than keep it to myself, because it was almost freeing just to have it out there. And it also created this space for people to share with me. The whole part of like having that peace that I couldn't understand, like, I mean, that was so very real, the peace. And I know that for me, that's my faith, that's God, keeping me grounded and to a point that's beyond any normal amount of peace or sense of calm that I could ever feel on my own. People often think if God's going to perform a miracle, it's going to be when they open her up in the OR and they're going to be like, there's nothing wrong in here, done. Or to do a CT scan, oh look, she's all better, there's nothing wrong at all, she doesn't need surgery. Obviously that didn't happen. I had the surgery, I was very sick, I have a bag on my side. In Joshua, when he was going to cross the Jordan River, and it says in the story that it didn't happen right in front of them. The water didn't go down in that moment right then. It started upstream. The water supply was like stopped, and so it took a while, to get to the point of the water being receded for them to cross on dry ground, which they did. Looking back now, from people being in the right place at the right time, people being here to help Andrew at the right place at the right time, that normally wouldn't have been. All those things pieced together were just, it's like, that could have only been, that wasn't by coincidence. I don't believe that it could have been a coincidence or by chance. It just felt very purposeful. Things were happening long before that I didn't see, or that I would never have attributed to me needing this. Like my sister getting a job in a certain position, I never would have thought that would have affected me in any sense or at all. But by the time the summer came, her job in January played a great role in helping me through the whole process, and her being able to be there for me. Like, seeing it now, it's like, yeah, that was God right there, and I didn't realize it. Or all these little things that just kind of came together, and it was just like, oh, well, that worked out really well. And that's what you normally think. What I would normally think would be, oh yeah, that was convenient, or that just was good timing. But I feel like it wasn't just good timing, it was God's timing. Good morning. There we go. Hi. I don't need to say anything else, do I? Because I feel like that was enough. I'm very, very grateful to be here. Not just here, but also alive. So first of all, thank you, Rochelle, for pointing out that this is the biggest crowd that's been here. I've already been told, likely as a joke, that there's people here that came just because they knew I was coming. And other people said, you're a great speaker. And I'm like, now everyone's here. And it's like, no pressure, but it's all good. So happy Mother's Day to all the moms and motherly figures that are here today and online. I think that's the camera, pretty sure. There's lights in my eyes. So last night, Andrew was putting the kids to bed. They actually couldn't come this morning because Pearson had like some sniffles, and now sniffles are like, wah, so we kept him home. So they're watching online as well. But he was putting the kids to bed last night, and Pearson said that Mommy was talking in church tomorrow. And Ray said, she is? I must have forgot to say it to her or something. And Andrew goes, yeah, she is. And she said, so she's gonna get up in front of all those people and talk? I have no trouble talking. Andrew goes, she is? Yep, you guys will be in kids' church. They're home. But he said, and she's going to be up there, but yeah, she's going up there. And she said, we'll be in kids' church, so we're going to miss it? And he goes, yeah, but you'll be having lots of fun. She points her finger at him. She said, Daddy, you have to remember everything she says. And I'm like, yes. Amen. Anyway, you've already heard lots from me in the video, so I don't intend to keep you long this morning. You're welcome. It's also Mother's Day, and no doubt some of you have plans to eat at your favorite restaurant, or, oh, thank you very much, servant. Eat at your favorite restaurant. Maybe you're going to travel somewhere today, or maybe you're going to work after this, who knows? I have plans to rush home and do absolutely nothing. But let's be realistic, because when I get home, I'll be sat down for a bit, but I'm sure tonight I'm going to be the one to get up and get the kids' outfits ready for tomorrow. And I'm going to be the one to pack the kids' lunches and Andrew's lunches, because I do that for him as well. He doesn't expect me to do any of these things, but I know that if he does it, he's only going to have to ask me anyway. So it's just as well for me to get up and do it myself. I've just made myself so irreplaceable. It's my own fault. So I've spoken like this morning. I've spoken here this before. I had it in my notes, actually. I was going to say it's been a couple years since the internship, but it's actually been 10 years, which I can't believe it's been 10 years, because I'm still only 20, right? That's not a joke. You were supposed to be like, totally. But last time I spoke, it wasn't here, but it was on Mother's Day. But that was actually 3 years ago. So if I seem sweaty and nervous, it's because I am. But yeah, as many times as I have spoken in the past, though, I've never been introduced with a story about my colon. Never opened up with that. Just trying to change things up a bit, I guess, make it a new thing. But it would have been quite boring if I had before and said, hi, my name is Deidre, I'm married to Andrew, I have 2 kids, a dog, and I have a perfectly healthy colon. There's nothing as interesting about that. And I told Andrew, I said, I don't know if I'm going to make anybody uncomfortable today with saying colon or poop or whatever, but if I make you uncomfortable, you can't get mad at me because I almost died. That's my rule, okay? And if you do get mad at me, then that's on you, because you got mad at the woman who almost died. So, if I make you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. Anyway, at the same time, I don't want anybody here to think, I was thinking about this, I was like, I don't want anybody to think I'm unrelatable because I have this crazy story. And it is a pretty crazy story. I tell it, and it's almost like it didn't happen to me. I see those pictures, and Rochelle is next to me, and she touched my leg. She was like, you were so sick there. I was like, yeah, I was just off the ventilator, yeah. It's no big deal. But it is a crazy story, but I don't want anyone to think that I'm unrelatable, because I am, as a person, as a mom, as a wife, whatever. And I'm just going to tell you, we're going to level the playing field here, okay? I might be up here telling a story, but I'm the person who, when I go and clean the house, I'll start tidying things around. I dust, yeah, right. I'm trying to make myself look good here. But I'll clean up, and then once I haul out the vacuum cleaner, our dog, he could be asleep over here. He's not afraid of the vacuum cleaner, but he will get up. He will stay lying there if I'm vacuuming. He doesn't mind it at all, but he will get up when I start to vacuum. And I'm like, oh, he's doing it again. Because he's getting up and he's walking over to the window to look out and see who's coming. He does that because I'm cleaning. I kid you not. So this is the person I am, okay? I'm not joking right now. He gets up and looks out the window. And I go, Batman, lie down. There's no one coming. Most of the time. He's wrong. Or right, I won't say. Anyway, that's where we're at, okay? So I'm relatable. I do have to make a correction though from the video. Not Mike's fault, it was my fault. Mike who edited it. I said I was in the hospital from July 26th to August 23rd, but it was actually June that I was in there. So it was 2 months that I was in there. Just wanted to correct that. Yeah, so I wasn't sure really where to go with what to share this morning. And you guys saw the video and hearing my story. And I thought, with it being Mother's Day and everything, I was trying to see how my experience and my story could possibly be linked to moms today. And I know I'm a mom, but lots of times I get asked, like, what happened to me? Or how did it happen? When did it happen? How did you feel? What were you thinking? What did the doctor say? Gross. They'll say that to me as well. And I'm like, that's fine. And I know I mentioned in the video that when I look back over it all, it's very evident how things that seemed irrelevant to me during that time in like the whole process, because I said like 2 months in the hospital, but then there was a lot of recovery at home. Like I still have muscle spasms in my arms and legs right now because they're still like, I scratched my back the other day and then I was like, oh, because my 2 biceps, not because I'm so strong, but because they're still like wonky. But it's evident that like things that seemed irrelevant to me at the time actually ended up being extremely important in my surgery and my recovery process. And in how in the case of Joshua, God began the process of receding the water upstream. And I feel like that's a great example of God working when we can't see it, but it makes sense in the end because it's in his timing. And I mentioned that, but today, I get thirsty, by the way. I almost died, so I can drink the water. Today, the Lord receded the saliva out of my mouth for today. I want to share more about after my surgery. Because yes, I had a lot happen, and yes, my body and some things I do have changed. My digestive system is rerouted. My diet has changed a bit. My understanding of God's timing in it all, as I look back, has changed. But another thing that is different overall is my perspective. And I'm not going to stand here and pretend that every moment of every day of my life, I'm going around and having like a compilation of epiphanies of the fact, and I stare off in awe of the fact that I'm alive. I'm not going to pretend that that's, reality. Does it happen more often than it did before? 100% it does. I could be on a walking trail or driving down the street or strolling through the mall, and I don't even like shopping, so why am I at the mall? But I could be. And I'll think to myself, I'm walking, I'm breathing, I'm here, and that happens to me more often, yes. So that perspective has changed that way. Another way that I thought my perspective would change, I thought, was how I am as a mom. So for example, when I was in the hospital and hooked up to all the things, you name something, I probably had it on me somewhere at some point. My sisters and my husband would send, my parents, whoever, would send me videos and pictures of my kids, and I would get to see how happy they were, that they were fine, they were having fun, they were distracted for a little bit anyway. And I remember crying in the hospital bed, and I thought to myself, I can never, ever imagine ever again being mad with my kids or putting them in a timeout. And I'm here to tell you that all perspectives can't be changed, okay? So I still get mad with my kids. That perspective didn't change. But the perspective that I have become very aware of over these last few months especially is when I look back at my time in the hospital and like things are fairly normal now, like recovery-wise. When I look back at my time in the hospital and think about my recovery, what I think about is how differently I would do it now. I've told my sister, Shonda, she was in the pictures and stuff. I have 3 sisters. I'm the youngest because I'm the most precious, of course. You stop when you get the right thing. That's it. Done. Here. Then my colon exploded and ruined everything. So, but I've told my sister Shonda, I said, it's so weird that when I think back to how I handled the steps of my recovery and getting my mobility back especially, that if I were to ever, heaven forbid, end up in a situation like that again, I feel like my perspective on that will be completely different. So I'll give you a little story from when I was in the hospital, because I had plenty of those. But when I was in there, and I really don't have much concept of the timeline of when this was. I just know I was out of ICU. I was in my own room at this point, and they had come in, like I said, and got that binder to fit for me, and they had to do a special one to cut the hole out to go around my bag and stuff. And so they went and they had that made, and then the physiotherapist and her assistant came in one day, and it was her physiotherapist, assistant, there was a nurse there that works, she's in the office on the floor, and my nurse for that day was there, and my sister was there, also a nurse. There might have been a student nurse in the room, so 5 or 6 people in the room, and they come in and they say to me, we're gonna put your binder on, and keep in mind, I just gotta explain this as well. So when I had my surgery, when I first came out and I was in the ICU, I was stapled at first. Again, I'm so sorry if this makes anybody comfortable, just plug your ears for 10 seconds. But they had staples, they had to take those out and put in what's called a vac dressing. And if you don't know what a vac dressing is, which I did not until I had one, they do it when you're full of infection, which I was very full of infection. And so they take sponge, literally sponge, not one from on your sink cupboard that you cleans off the counter with, but one the big one I needed was about that big. I needed 2 of them about that big. It's a black sponge and it's about that thick. 2 of those they had to pack into my wound. My sister told me her size 8 shoe would have fit in there and she could have closed it over. I was like, please don't do that. But great. Actually, I have some pictures. I'm just kidding. I don't. Everyone's like, my heart rate's 155 now. Yeah, so it was a sponge. You pack it in there and then you put stuff around it and then you put this basically plastic wrap, medical plastic wrap. And then they cut a hole in that in the bottom. They put a thing over it with a tube that comes out of it, and then they hook it up to the machine. It was in my lap in one of the pictures, and it was on the foot of my bed, and that tube was hooked up to this vacuum, literally, and you turn it on, and it would go, and it would just literally suck in, and that was on my stomach for a couple months, and it got smaller and smaller because they wanted to heal from the inside and blah, 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 blah. So that was on there. They had to put the binder around me to hold me together, essentially, when I got up. So when they came into the room, these people came into my room, I was lit in the bed, and they said, hi, I'm Deidre, or you're Deidre, sorry. I almost died, don't, please. You're Deidre, I'm your physiotherapist, we're gonna put your binder on, we're going to get you to, we're gonna elevate your bed a little bit, we're gonna get you to pull your legs out over the side of the bed, we're gonna help you the whole time, and there's a walker here. You're gonna put your 2 hands on the walker. We're gonna get you to stand up, sit back down, and then lie back in the bed again. That's literally all they wanted me to do, with 2 people helping me in a walker to stand me up. I cried. I cried uncontrollably. And I was inconsolable, and I was irrational, and I just didn't know how. I was like, this is not, I can't do that. There's no possible way that is going to happen this day. So I scared them all, they all left. They all gave me a minute. And my sister stayed with me and she said, Deidre, she said, I know it's really scary and I know that it's overwhelming right now, but they know what they're doing. They do this all the time. They're not gonna do anything that's gonna hurt you. But you're gonna be okay, you can do this. So I did do it, if you're wondering. I did stand up that day and sit right back down again. But it really felt impossible. I can't even explain. It sounds so silly, but it was absolutely impossible to me. But now, if current me was in that position, with knowing what I know and how you get through it all, I probably would be saying, when they said, we're going to get you behind, I'd probably be, come on, let's go for a walk, let's get me home, come on, right? But because my perspective has changed now since that point. I really do. I look back and I really, really, truly do understand why I cried that day. But it also seems silly to me that I did. Because it did get better, and I got stronger. I'm still getting stronger. I had lost all my muscle, and I don't say that in an over-exaggerating way, like it was just my muscle was gone, honestly. I lost 60 pounds in total. Fear not, I found a lot of it again. God love me. But yeah, let's be real here though. It's super easy to look back on a situation and say how current, more experienced, more older, more mature, more knowledgeable us would do things differently if we'd been back there now. But that's not fair to put that on ourselves. It's not fair for me to look at myself back then and try to compare me, what I would do now, to that person, because that's not the same person. It's actually an impossible thing to achieve. And the only thing that looking back and thinking of how we shouldn't have done that or shouldn't have reacted that way, the only thing that does is make us feel guilty. And I'm not saying, I'm going to quote my husband here now. He goes, don't hear what I'm not saying. When he speaks, he'll say, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying it's not good to be reflective and think of how we can do things more purposeful in the future and use our knowledge to help us make good decisions and so on. But for me to look back and feel silly for how I responded in that incredibly hard and incredibly painful circumstance, it doesn't serve me well to do that. So moms, and those motherly figures that are here today or watching online, when it comes to being a mother, we are not going to make all the right decisions. Did I blow your mind, Sam? What a concept. We are not going to make all the right decisions. We are not going to be flawless in our parenting approach. Like yesterday. I do get frustrated with my kids. If you were wondering about that story, I certainly do get frustrated with my kids now. Just yesterday, I said to my kids, guys, can you stop? You're being so loud, and I'm trying to prepare a message for Mother's Day. Can you stop being so loud right now? I'm like, ooh. I mean, sweetie, shh, stop. Mommy's busy. But no, I was like, stop, guys. You're so loud right now. And I'm here trying to talk to all the moms today about being good moms, right? But we're not always going to say the right things. We are not always going to react the right way. I don't anyway. If you're all great, don't tell me. But looking back on things that you've said and you've done and you wish you hadn't only serves to give you mom guilt. And mom guilt is so real. And it doesn't matter what age your child is, mom guilt is real. And social media is great at reminding us of how not great we are or the things that we're inadequate in, right, as moms. Whether you have a baby or young kids in school like myself, or you have teenagers in school, or your kids are grown up and married and have their own kids, mom guilt can really, really fester and become something painful. But as a mom, I do know that looking back on things you could have done differently, like I said, just like me looking back at me in the hospital, looking back at things you've done or said wrong, it doesn't serve you well. It never will. You can look back and enjoy the memories and tell the stories and laugh at the videos. My kids love watching themselves in videos. I don't, but they love watching themselves in videos. I love watching them, not myself, I mean. And you can cry at how much they've grown. Again, Facebook is so great with those memories. It's like they're so beautifully horrifying. Like yesterday, Andrew goes, look, Deidre, and it was me holding Pearson. And he was like 5 months old or so, and I was like, oh, it was 5 years ago. It's like, sweet, like I'm past that now, but it's like, it's tough. But look at that stuff and enjoy it. Don't look back with guilt or regret as a mom, or don't look back and think your actions or your reactions were silly, because they might look silly now, but they made sense in the moment. Like when you had to put your baby up in the crib, I'm speaking from experience here, because he wouldn't stop crying, and you just had to go down and sit on the couch and cry yourself. Looking at that now, you're like, Why did I do that? But in the moment, it was necessary. The best thing you can do is be in the moment you're in. Be present, be there, be honest, and be real. I am all about those things as a mom. Not great at all of them, don't get me wrong, but I'm all about being real with my kids. Like, if I wasn't real with my kids, they'd have so many questions. But I'm all about being real with my kids, to the point that now, my kids will tell people, Mommy can't fart anymore. And like, I'd argue with them, but they're not wrong. And I'm like, do I really want to get into that argument anyway? And now here I am telling the biggest group in church yet for a long time that I can't fart, apparently. And if you don't like me, and people online, if you don't like me saying it, sorry, but I almost died, right? But it is what it is. They know what happened. They know what happened to me. They've seen my massive scar. They know that I almost died, and they know I survived. I've sat with them and sifted through some huge emotions that I never thought they would have to experience at their young age. But it helps for me to be real with them and be honest with them, being in that moment with them, whether that's a happy moment or a heavy one. And those can quickly change too, because we'll have happy moments. And the other day, it was a couple days ago, the word hospital got said in our house, just randomly, like wasn't talking about me or anything like that, the word hospital. And it was normal conversation. And then Pearson, from the bathroom where he was peeing with the door open, said, Mommy, I missed you when you were at the hospital, because it's still there. But that's okay. I don't say, oh, that's fine, Mommy's all better now. No, it's okay. It's okay to be real and to be in that moment with them where he feels that. So be real, be in that moment, whether it's happy or a heavy one. And I'm actually going to invite the band to come back, if you guys don't mind. The mistakes or letdowns that have come before, or that will inevitably come later, it'll all come together at some point, no doubt, but in the present moment, that's all that matters. Because all we have is right now. And I don't mean that in a scary way. I don't want you to leave here and say, well, the lady that almost died went and told me that I'm going to die any second and I just got to live right now. I don't want you to go off and think that. I don't mean that. I mean it in a happy way. We are here now. We have now. What has happened before, that happened. We don't need the mom guilt to wonder what would have happened had we done X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, and C. That don't matter. It's easy to be retrospective and confident in what has already happened, but it takes guts to stand in the moment you're in, not knowing how things will turn out, but doing the hard things and having the painful moments and feeling the heavy emotions and working through that, trusting that it will work out. That's what takes the guts, especially for the moms, right? It would have been super easy for Joshua, who I mentioned in the video, to act if he had known if he knew already how long it would take for that water to stop flowing so that they could cross the Jordan on dry ground. It would have been easy if he had known that when it was going to happen. But he had to go on limited information. He had no real concrete timeline, no real understanding of how long the wait was going to be, how hard the process would be. He just had to hold on to the idea in that moment that this is all going to be okay, right? We're going to get across here, right? This is the right thing to do, right? We're supposed to just put our feet here in the water and stand here, right? Because that's what they did. And I could go on and on about the story of Joshua, but I told Andrew, I got to stop, because if I do, I'll just keep going, and then you'll be really upset with me. And then that would be fair to be mad at the lady who almost died. But he became a great leader. But in this moment, when Joshua had to step in faith, in the unknown, not knowing exactly when the moment would be over, just standing there together with people with him, getting their feet wet, that moment played a big part in who Joshua was going forward in his journey as a leader. He could have easily looked back at the situation after and had thought, well, had I known I was going to be standing in the water like that, maybe I could have just stood on the side instead of getting my feet wet. And sure, that may be true, but it probably would have changed the narrative of him and who he was and who he became as a leader. Because it's standing in those moments there that just waiting in those moments that builds us and builds our character and builds who we are. As mothers and motherly figures, we face each moment as it comes. We can't look back and critique ourselves and how we would have done something different had we known. Thankfully, my children's futures are held by someone way bigger and way more powerful than me and my mistakes from back there. Same goes for yours, no matter how young or old your kids are. And thankfully, I was given the incredible privilege and amazing responsibility of being a mother, and same goes for you, no matter how young or old you are. What we are required to do is love them no matter what. Teach them about Jesus, show them kindness, and help them to learn to be kind. And we need to be real with them. Not everything we do is going to be the perfect thing, but what has happened has already happened, and that's okay. Our lives are made up of these moments that we are in. Some moments seem perfect, and other moments it feels like we're just standing there getting our feet wet. And maybe future us will look back and say, why in the world did we do that? Why did we just stand there getting our feet wet? That seems so silly. We could have done that so differently. But lots of times, it's the moments when we're standing there waiting for the water to recede that we are becoming who we are meant to be. Those times of uncertainty, those times when we make the mistakes, we said the wrong things, those shape us and allow us to grow and mature so that when we are in the here and now, we are exactly who and where we need to be for our children and for ourselves. As moms, it's not up to us to do the impossible and to look back and say, had I known. We are not required to hold that guilt of something that we can't change. And I'll leave you with this quote that I read a little while ago. It says, as a mother, my job is to take care of the possible and to trust God with the impossible. I want to read it again. As a mother, my job is to take care of the possible and to trust God with the impossible. Let's pray. God, I thank you for this day. First, I want to say a prayer for anyone out there who longs to be a mom. I pray for anyone who doesn't find Mother's Day to be a happy celebration, but a harsh reminder of what they don't have or what they've lost. We pray for them today, and God, I pray that if they find this day painful, that they will know that that is 100% okay. This day doesn't have to be celebrated for them, but it can be mourned. And I ask for your peace and comfort for them. God, I also pray for the moms. I thank you for the moms and motherly figures here in the room and watching online. I pray that we will know our value and that we are not required to look back and regret anything or dwell on our parenting mistakes, but we are to stand where we are and know that you are with us. We are enough for our children. You gave us our children on purpose, and for that we are grateful. I pray you will go before us and behind us and within us and all around us today and in the week ahead. Amen.